Well, hello there everyone, and welcome one and all to this development live stream. Let's once again make sure we have the audio levels set up somewhat nicely. Let's make sure we have the game built. And let's make sure we can actually do work. Yes, everything seems to be built. That's nice. So, I started streaming pretty early today, and I titled this live stream "Big Old Live Stream." So I was thinking I would quite simply just work on the game today. I have like any number of things that I can work on, and quite a few of them are actually sort of like stream compatible, if you will. So this might go on for a while, unless something unexpected happens. So we may take a few breaks. I do know I have to take a few breaks. I have to make some food at some point and do some other family-related business. But apart from those, I was thinking I would basically just work on the game, because that is kind of what I just need to do right now. How about that? And if that sounds interesting, you are welcome to hang around, ask questions, or just listen to me yapping in the background, whatever floats your boat, so to speak. I hope my audio levels are somewhat decent. If they aren't, let me know. And we can figure it out. Thinking maybe the music might be a little too loud, right? Let's bring it down ever so slightly. Something like that. Maybe that's better. And maybe I should even post about this thing in like Discord and places. That might make sense. Let's have a look-see here. Sometimes I forget to plug this thing in. And that's not a good idea. Right, that would be one. That would be another one. And we'll see where that takes us. Right? So I should probably mention here that if you join the Discord, you can play the pre-alpha of Traction Point, the game that we are building. And so I'm going to post a link to that there in the chat. At the same time, I will be testing out our chat overlay, which is something that I kind of started doing a kind of recently, so it hasn't been very thoroughly tested. Something like that, right? And that should be nice. Okay. Well, before I started the stream, I did spend a little bit of time today already working on the game, and I've been working on this level here. So, as you can see, it's very much in progress still. There's some single-colored cliffs here. We have some not necessarily single-colored. There's a little bit of texture to these guys, but like they're very rough still. They need some more painting and things like that. What I'm aiming for is something like this. I'm not sure this is going to be the kind of final look, but you can see here that these guys have like a little bit of dirt painted on them, a little bit of this yellowish sort of almost like ground color. Like this place is very kind of yellow, kind of like dried grass. Dried grass is kind of like a feeling I'm going for with this whole place here, right? And so something like this, and you can see that we actually have a little bit of it going here, but then like rest of the place is still lacking. There's actually a little bit on top of this guy as well. Like this whole area is completely sort of lacking any sort of hand painting. Unfortunately, I'm not really set up to paint on this particular machine. I have a separate computer that I do the painting on. I also realized today that like with Blender 4.5, which I updated to basically yesterday, this guy it just takes ages and ages to bake these materials that I need for this, which is kind of annoying. I don't know if it's like a setting that I have incorrectly set somewhere, or it's actually an issue with my machine or with Blender 4.5, but it takes like 2 minutes or something to bake now, and it used to take 10 seconds maybe, so that's a little annoying. Maybe we'll encounter that later in the stream if we actually do some baking here. But regardless, I'm gonna continue working on this because this is my streaming machine, so we're just gonna have to make do, quite simply. And specifically what I was doing before I started streaming, as you can kind of see here from this piece, this is not how I typically work. It would be like this piece here, which is actually just like a single mesh. We can just yoink this out of the place. And it's kind of like an end piece. You can see a lot of these things, just they don't have any backside. You can just see through them. And the idea of this piece is just to be there and be kind of detailed enough that the player doesn't really realize that it's actually like a completely custom piece of land. Like normally you have these cliffs, so this is like a pretty large piece of cliff as well. You can take out like that, and then underneath that you have this terrain. This is a height field terrain, which means that it looks kind of wonky here along the sides. But it's a height field terrain, so we can just edit it right here in the editor like this if we want to, right? Now that height field terrain ends around here. You can probably see the corner of the whole thing if we really try. It's right here, I think. Yep, there's the corner of the whole thing. Of the entire terrain, and then it kind of continues this way. Yeah, you can see the edge here, which meant that this piece here was kind of like slightly outside of the area that I actually needed to have terrain in. But since the player's not going to be able to actually drive there, because the level currently ends here. You can see there's a blocker sort of across this. Well, the bottom side kind of goes into the terrain there, but still, there's a blocker here, preventing the player from going further. It kind of just needs to look like there is terrain there, right? Maybe I should do something like this, like lift it up a little bit, something like that. So let's actually just play the game and see what we're looking at here. It's actually kind of designed to be the very first campaign mission in the game. And so you will kind of like start something like this, and it will be sort of like handheld and led into this area where the actual gameplay will take place. But if the player just decides, nah, I'm gonna drive back. I'm gonna drive back here and see what is found in this place. Well, actually the level ends here, so you get sort of like a forced break, something like called a slowdown area, and you can't actually go further than this. We had a bit of a discussion in last stream about like different ways that we could maybe make it slightly less jarring, that the fact that like you just kind of drive into a wall here might be able to have some sort of small kind of visual hint that, oh, okay, the level actually ends here. But regardless, you can't sort of go past this cliff here, right, in that direction. And even if you have this huge vehicle called the Mother, and spawn in a Mother here, boom, just about fits in this place, which has a much further away camera, like this orbit camera here is much further from the vehicle compared to the Scout. You can't go there. The camera can see like a little bit more, so you can see sort of like around this area here that, okay, you know, the road continues over there, and if we drive it here close to the edge, actually you can see almost nothing here. You might be able to see a bit more if we drive slightly along this road. Let's see what happens. There's that outcropping there, which I think is probably like the best vantage point if you actually want to have a look at, like, okay, what is behind that cliff, so to speak. And now you can also not drive off the cliff anymore. I got stuck there on the blocker actually. Yeah, this level is a little tricky for the Mother vehicle. The Mother vehicle will get a new tire model as soon as I can be bothered to try that out. So here you can see that, okay, yeah, we have a little bit of you know of terrain here, but you can't really see it like up close. Oh, and we actually got stuck there on that rock. The rock is kind of poking the thing, poking the underside of the vehicle. So yeah, that is sort of the idea of that last piece. That it should just be good enough from a distance. And we can see that the actual like place where it connects to the actual terrain is, well, it's a little rough currently, and it will probably be a little rough, but maybe not quite this rough. And we also will want to paint grass on it, and the grass painting is going to be my next thing that I'm gonna want to try. But we have a problem with the grass that we need to solve. I'm just gonna lower the terrain there, so it kind of. Actually, let's maybe bring down the strength. Not that anyone is gonna be looking at this from this you know, perspective, but still. So normally when we paint grass, the grass kind of assumes the color of the terrain. So that's why when we have this like sandier color here along these rocks, you can see the grass actually also gets the sandier color. And then when you're like more kind of yellowish or brownish, the sand, not the sand, but the grass also gets the yellower and browner color. And so it takes it from the terrain. The problem, of course, being here that we don't have any terrain here. It's just a mesh like this. The terrain ends here. Here's the corner of it. We still need it to somehow get this yellowish color here for the grass. So how would we do that? And we actually had a previous level with a similar problem. So let's go have a look at what I did there. So that is the refinery blockout. So this is something that I considered or I called the demo level back in the day, before I started using the pre-alpha names for things. So the demo level is this. This is the level that you can actually play today if you join the Discord and download the pre-alpha 2 at this point. Has this level here. Hey Marcus, welcome back. Today we're going to be working on basically just like the game. I gave the stream the big old live stream name specifically because I haven't exactly planned what I want to do in this stream. I have any number of possibilities essentially, but right now we're doing, I would call it maybe like asset or level design. Rightio. So I think it's this area here. This area here also kind of falls outside of the terrain. Let's see. Yeah, the terrain ends here. You can see underground here. The terrain ending, and we just have this like vast area of single colored green. And so this guy needs to have a special material, and that is what I wanted to check. It is called Map Refinery Materials Hack Ground Grass. So yeah, it is a little bit of a hack in the sense that like the normal grass, you just paint onto the material or onto the terrain, and it kind of assumes it by itself. And we can't do that here. So let's export to that guy and find it here, Hack Ground Grass. And we can do the same thing for that other level. I bet it's actually that one, right? Isn't it? So shell grass lighting, custom function node diffuse, and it gets the terrain pattern. That's why this grass is a little like it's not completely single colored. You can see that it has these, it's kind of like darker specks, and that's the, come on, that's the terrain pattern 512, which is an almost, this looks white here, but it's actually not white. It contains those specks, and we just multiply it by 10 because they're so very faint. Yeah, that looks good. So we can take this material and create a similar sort of situation here in the map depot. So we have materials, blockout cliff. What is blockout cliff? That's something that I probably don't use anymore. Okay. Yeah, it might actually be the thing that we have here sort of like underneath the... If we go back here to the depot. Like this guy, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. What is this? Background terrain. Okay. Yeah, this is actually a let's see, where's fog? There's fog. This is something that like it doesn't quite fit with the current ambience. I need to kind of figure out a little bit more about what I want to do with the background. Like here you can it kind of like looks pretty nice if you're standing here on this cropping and just like looking out onto the onto the plane here, but you can very clearly see the edge of this mesh here, so that's something we need to look at. And I think you can see it even closer, even better here. Yeah, that doesn't look good. So something needs to happen there. Maybe that's something we can look at after this. And yeah, there's these like super large. Oh, that's actually a mesh these days as well. It's a quick mesh. So there's like enormous. You can see just like the bounding box is like absolutely huge for this thing. Enormous plane that has like maybe a bump or two, and then the level is here in the middle. And then there's this slightly more detailed, or actually a lot more detailed version, which is this guy, which is sitting here like closer to the level itself. But yeah, quite a lot of stuff to do still with the background here. Doesn't quite work yet how I want it. Okay, that's neither here nor there. So let's add a new material here. That was a hack ground grass. So I'm gonna call this road ramp grass, because this thing here is called the cliff road ramp. So that'll be good. And the grass will be the incorrect color, but I don't exactly know the color yet. So let's just keep it as it is. Just export it here, and it should give us a bin material. So now the way that we paint grass here is that we figure out first of all where do we have our grass objects. They're in the on the grass layer. Makes sense. We create a new shell grass object, and we kind of specify here, okay, what's the area inside of which we will be able to paint grass. We need to do that so that we can essentially like map a texture to an area in the world. And my spidey senses tell me that like 150 should be enough. We can sort of slide it into place, because that, like the grass from the previous area, which you can actually see better from underground if you want to actually see where it kind of ends. You can see that it goes that far. Realistically, no one should be able to see behind this rock. Maybe we can paint a little bit of grass there as well. And then yeah, we might want to have. Actually, I'm gonna move it a bit further this way, so we can cover basically all of this guy here. And then just make it a bit taller, maybe 40. That's kind of neat. Then we have the whole area. The most important part is this area here. That's where we'll actually want to, probably like just the outer side of this thing here. That's where we will want to have grass. Have grass properly. So now if we use the normal one, which is this shell grass environment 1, and we start painting grass here, stuff is probably just going to look really, really bad. Right, okay, the first problem is that you can see here that we have this cursor or whatever with these lines. It kind of just like goes away here. That's the first problem. We need to actually make sure that the grass is put on top of this mesh. And that we can do by copying the full path of it and making it one of the blocking objects here. So now you can see that now it actually kind of snaps on top of this guy. So we start painting grass here. You can see, oh, it's green. It's green and weird, and you get some like completely funky things here. Where are those colors coming from? This looks like a road here, right? that's a road, and I think the terrain texture just has like sampling set to wrap or something. So this road is actually one of these places here where we actually do have road. So that's not good. Let's not have that. But let's paint here a little bit of grass where we might actually want to have some, right over there. And now if we switch this out to, what was it called? It was called road ramp grass bin material. Put that there instead. Road ramp grass. Now we have this green color, and now it should be green, sort of uniformly green across the whole range. That is of course not really what we want, so we're gonna want to switch out the color for that yellowish thing. That's not the one we want, this is the one we want. And it should update in sort of real time. So if we go and have a look and make it a bit more yellowish maybe. Let's try that. Let's see what happens. So that's way too bright, okay? Okay, it's a bit too green still. Just to show you what I'm doing here, this is what the color dialog looks like in my material editor. It's a little crap, to be honest. So I just kind of need to like try this out. This is starting to look nicer. I think we're gonna want it to be like even more yellow, and then we're gonna need to bump up the. Oh, actually not the saturation, no. So bring that down, and the lightness, so the value, right? Not too much again. Yeah, that's pretty good actually. That's not that bad. And remember, we're gonna be looking at it from like this distance, so it's almost like questionable if we need to do this at all. But yeah, I'm gonna do it anyway and see what happens, how it looks. So now we can go in and paint some grass here. So let's do that. And then we can adjust the light intensity and things like that separately then for different areas if you want to. And of course, what we're sort of like really trying to achieve here is give the player the illusion that like the terrain just like continues this way, even though it like technically doesn't. Yeah, here where it actually meets this other grass, I just want to bump the intensity slightly. And there's actually quite a bit of hand painting with this, specifically with this grass, just because I want it to kind of like melt into the terrain, while also keeping it like almost like a little bit like painterly or something. And grass is kind of visible often against, you know, these rocks and things like that. It can be kind of difficult actually to see at large distances, but then if you paint it against a mesh, you can sort of see the silhouette there being kind of broken up by the grass. Something like this. A little bit more here on this side. this round kind of hump here. And of course, I have this highlight material, which I call it. So let's go to highlight, grass paint highlight. Looks like this. And the idea of this material is that it should be very, very obvious where you have grass or, you know, snow or whatever you use this shader to paint, actually. And it's blue specifically because, like, grass tends to be anything but blue. It can be green, it can be brown, it can be yellow, it can be red. It doesn't tend to be blue. Blue is like not the color that grass tends to have. So that's why I made this blue, so that like it's super visible. I can hear a little bit of a thunderstorm brewing outside. So that's that's a little scary. Let's hope, you know, I don't get a blackout and the stream cuts out. If that happens, then you know that it was probably the thunderstorm that like caused the blackout or something. And that has happened before. Not to jinx it, but it has been a thing. Right, I think that, the grass cutoff distance is actually like kind of let's see, high level of detail. Cutoff distance is 250 for this object. You can set it like on a per object basis. We don't necessarily need to like do any of that. I'm just wondering that like if this place is one of the most important places for this grass, because this is the outcropping that we were standing on previously, and you can sort of see this area there, like, oh, okay, it continues that direction. Then like you have only like a few pixels of this stuff here. Let's get rid of this completely, because that can't be seen anyway. And if you're thinking about this from like a an optimization perspective, then you're going to want to look at this grid here, and these grids, these blue boxes here, are the individual meshes that get created for the grass here at runtime, or the export time, shall we say. And if you're thinking about it from an optimization perspective, then you're going to want to make sure that you have like cleared one of these cells completely, and then it won't occupy any memory and not incur a performance hit. I can protect users mint 25 pop. That's interesting. How are you planning to do that? Will you stand outside of my house with a metal rod in the air and take the lightning when it comes, leading it away from our electrical systems, electrical grid. Right, so right, once again, this would just look strange. Again, we have the road here kind of represented in our grass colors. That's not good, so let's do road ramp grass instead. And it's this kind of nice and neat color, and I think that will actually do. Let's play the game and see what that looks like. What will that look like? Yeah, so it's not super obvious that there's actually anything there. Need to come a little bit closer maybe to see that. It's not necessarily a problem. And because this mesh is a little strange. It even contains these smaller rocks that sit on top of it. Not those. These ones are part of this piece here. But this one is. And because of that, the grass will try to sort of like jump onto this rock. Right? We can just paint here and go like, oh, I'm gonna paint some grass on top of this guy. Because it's just part of the same mesh. Now whether we want that or not is a question. I'm gonna get rid of that cell grid there. Like this thing actually looks kind of nice from a distance because it kind of looks like there is a little bit of grass there. So maybe we can do something kind of similar here. A little bit of grass there. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. Let's make sure that we are using the full height of the grass here, but I think we actually already are. And then what can make it also a bit more visible is just to like paint a little bit of darkness into this thing. So like take a bit of the light intensity away from some of these areas, because you know grass is not uniformly colored in real life either. You know, something like this might just make it a bit more visible. Alright. Yeah, it's a bit more visible now, I'd say. Just, you know, small developer hacks like that. Especially when this is an area that we won't actually, you know, get too up close, really, ever. Let's add some rocks here. Right, we have the same issue here with like the decoration system kind of wanting to place things onto the terrain, right? Editor object. Yeah, we have object placement, which we can go on closest object or on terrain. Actually, that requires me to use this mode, and now it places it on top of the thing. But if I use the decoration mode, which, you know, allows me to like paint objects like that, that's a separate tool, and it kind of wants to work on the terrain. I don't think I ever put in like a setting for that, but oh well, can't be helped. Bitrate make the grass very hard to see. It is supposed to be very hard to see. Yeah, that's something that I spoke about earlier. The fact that like I specifically want the grass to kind of just like melt into the terrain. Because, you know, some games are like some games have grass that is very, very obvious, that like, okay, there's grass here on the ground, and the grass is visible, and it's a mesh, and it's clearly placed on the ground. And underneath the ground you have like a green plane, right? And that I think that breaks the illusion a little bit of the whole thing. Like what would the plane be if the grass is the mesh, and then you have the plane on top of which it goes? What is that green that's like under the grass, right? I will actually show you in a bit, but like if I play the game like this, I think even with the YouTube bitrate being what it is, I think you should be able to see the grass pretty clearly, like at this distance, right? It should be pretty clear that there is something going on here. And of course this is shell textured grass, so there's a little bit of these like artifacts if you put the camera down low enough. And that's kind of just like, it's just part of this game's identity. But if you're driving like this, especially with this, let's take away some of this element points here. If you're driving sort of like fast like this, I kind of just want there to be like a subtle sort of hint of, oh, okay, maybe there's actually grass here, because like you can see the shadows kind of playing on top of the silhouettes of the grass and everything, right? But the fact that the ground is like yellow, well, the yellow should come from the grass or whatever is covering it. It turns a little greener when you come to this small glade here with this untextured building. So I actually I have a previous incarnation of this project. Let's just save that level there and go to Visual Studio. We can quickly have a look-see here. So this is a previous incarnation of the project, which does it in the other way, in the opposite way, the way that I just sort of criticized, right? And I was not very happy with this. So let's see if we actually log into the asset server. You can see the countdown. It converts all the things. So we go here, and we run a script like maybe like the Lancer, maybe. So this uses grass in a different way. It has very clearly like a number of meshes. I think I have one good place that I'm gonna go take a look at. So here, right? This game uses a more sort of detailed art style in almost everything. You can see that there's just like a whole lot more like detail to all of these textures here, and you have like, you know, you have this grass texture here on the ground. Then you have grass next to it. And these grasses are these kinds of like grass tufts that I've painted, and then I don't even remember. I think these actually also assume the color somehow from the ground or something. But still, like, I got annoyed with the fact that, like, okay, so if this is grass, that like makes it look like this, then you know, what is this? What's this? What's this green stuff here? If this is not grass. And you know, you could argue that, well, it's just like very short grass. Well, who went in and cut the grass here? Who made it? Who went in with like a lawnmower here in the middle of this area? Kind of not really anyone. And so I don't know. It kind of annoyed me a little bit that like, it looks like this, because you can clearly see where there is grass in the form of these grass tufts, whatever you want to call this, and then areas that are just like, okay, they're just grass colored, but there's no grass there, right? And so in Traction Point, in the newer game, I kind of have it all melt together a little bit. I mean, you still have the same thing if you're really being pedantic here. You still have these areas that have the grass, which is sort of supposed to just melt into the whole thing. And then you have areas like this behind these trees that are just like, you know, grass colored or ground colored, whatever you want to call it here, but don't have them. But I think it still kind of looks nicer and not more believable. That's not really the thing I'm going for here, that it should look realistic or anything like that. I just think it looks nicer, like it's a nicer art style. Alright, Chunkus had a question here. I'm gonna go get a glass of water because I've been yapping so much, so I'll be back in like 30 seconds. Righto. And also, like, one more thing about the grass. The fact that this is shell textured means that I can just have like a whole lot more of it. And they're not like individual meshes that need to be... Oh, I'm sorry, I'm hitting my microphone again. They're not individual meshes that need to be drawn, even, you know, even if we have instancing. The fact that we're drawing like individual grass blades means that either you can't have very many, or then you need to put some serious chops into optimizing that stuff. These guys are not individual meshes, they're just like a layer of textures. And you can also, quite easily, I might add, make it so that if you drive on this grass, it just gets flattened, which is kind of nice, which is something I do. So if we, I mean, this doesn't really look spectacular, but it's still like it reacts. So if we drive like this, let's make a loop here and then we drive out. We can see that we actually do have these kinds of paths here in the grass. And then over time the grass kind of like grows back. If you look at this, you might be able to see it there, some sort of coming back after a while. So that's kind of neat as well. Righty-o. Which language do you enjoy working in the most? I don't really know. I don't really know which language I enjoy working the most. It's not like a dry, you know, cut and dry sort of thing that like I like Zig, or I like C#, or I like C++, I like, I don't know, Erlang. It's much more that like, okay, some things are really nice to do in some language. And I like writing gameplay code in Zig for a number of reasons. When you're writing gameplay code, it's all about like the game. That is the idea. And Zig as a language is very simple. It compiles reasonably fast. Still too slow for my take, especially with this project is starting to get kind of slow to build. But they're working on that. And so hopefully it will get faster. But it's reasonably fast, even if you're doing a full build. That's one thing. When I'm doing tools, I really like working with C#, because it has just like the enormous amount of you know, libraries, tools, that sort of thing. It has really good reflection capabilities, which is super handy when you're building tools, and so on. And to be honest, even though I don't kind of really like C++ all that much, I kind of enjoy it in the sense that writing technology, so a game engine, for example, or a platform that you're building your app on, writing the actual platform, or in this case the game engine with C++, is kind of enjoyable actually, because there's some really good tools for C++. Visual Studio itself is really pretty good. You also have a bunch of profilers to help you out. Memory profilers, performance profilers. And it's kind of enjoyable in the sense that like C++ has a lot of nice libraries you can use. Things like physics. So I enjoy it because of that, right? I wouldn't necessarily want to write all the gameplay code in C++. But I mean, I have done that. The previous game that you saw, the other one with the not so stellar grass, that is actually completely C++. Or not C++, not completely. It does have some scripted like behaviors in it, but it doesn't have any Zig in it. I definitely do prefer the melting grass. I assume you mean this thing here, this shell textured grass. But yeah, that makes me happy that you do prefer that one. Okay. Right, glass of water, and then we'll continue. So, what should we do now? I don't think that thing is necessarily like good enough, but it's starting to be pretty good. And I'm not sure it really makes sense to have like a whole lot more grass than this. So maybe we'll leave it as it is for now. So that means that we have essentially 2 more cliffs that are untextured. We have this one. That would be just quick mesh 3. So it's this piece here, which is just like a slightly smaller piece that was supposed to be originally the end piece of the level, but that didn't really look realistic or natural. So I put this ramp here behind it, and then we have this one, which is this pretty big piece actually. It's all the way to there. And we actually have one more. We have the thing here inside of the tunnel, right? This is also, that's also quick mesh. Bloop. And the reason I keep this separate from the outside is that I will actually need to put in a gate here. And I wasn't sure if I want to put the gate here outside of this thing, or if I want to put the gate sort of so that it kind of like somehow fits into this like inner roof or ceiling. Ceiling, I guess, is the correct word. So even though this outside is actually fully textured, it's just like very vague, like it's like painted in a way that almost makes it look like single color, right? That's actually not. So clearly needs to be a bit more painted probably. This inner piece is actually fully single colored. So I can just make it blue to kind of make it stand out. That is the piece that we're talking about here. That needs to be finished from a modeling perspective, because some of these things look kind of wonky. Then we need to add the gate here, and then we need to texture it nicely. And then when this thing gets light mapped, this tunnel here should be much sort of darker and nicer looking. It's kind of too bright now. It doesn't really look realistic that it's that bright. So there we had like at least like 3 different things that we could do. I was thinking of something else that I might want to do. But I mean, we could just do this piece. It shouldn't be that difficult to do. Neither is this necessarily. But it probably takes more time, right? Well, yeah, maybe we'll do that. We'll start by doing that. Should we actually start by doing a little bit more decoration of this piece here? Maybe paint some or place some more trees. That's not what I wanted to do. Come on, height. You can see that this grass painting actually uses like an ImGUI window, which means that it is actually not something. It's not actually not like a native tool to this editor. It's something that is built in almost like game code, and the editor really doesn't have any idea what is happening. And because of that, when you want to paint grass, you need to click Edit State here, and you can get this. You can see this this editing grass, shell grass 9 grass editor thing here, which kind of just means that we are now in edit mode for this object. And again, the editor doesn't really know what that even means, because the whole grass editing logic is in game code. Kind of like how you can make custom editor tools in Unity by just writing them in your own scripts. You can do sort of like the same thing here. Okay. Right, so let's put in like maybe a tree or two here. And those would go in the trees, rocks, etc. category there. So what do we want to look at? Maybe like a spruce collection here. Would that make sense? I think it might. Also helps with like establishing the size of these things. Right? If we take that away, we don't really know like how big is this cliff. If we put a spruce collection there, you can already see that okay, that's a spruce. They're pretty big. We have these scale mannequins that we can see. This is how big a character, a human, would be. So it's actually a pretty big cliff, pretty large cliff. And here's a person. So that's that. Let's put in one of these, maybe like a red. I call these like Christmas trees because they're almost like Christmas tree style trees. And then if we put one of these here, it looks kind of lonely. So we're gonna need to put in some rocks as well. I'm getting a phone call. 1 second. Alrighty then, we're back. Right, so let's see. I was gonna put some more rocks there, and because our decoration painting tool is a little annoying, I'm just gonna manually activate the ground decoration layer, and then I can use just the standard placement tool here for it, like that. Actually, I might want to use maybe that one, and then maybe even scale them up a little bit, because remember, I'm going to be looking at this from quite far, something like that. So makes sense that they're a bit larger. Can even do. Actually, I think that's probably fine. Yeah, that's probably fine. Let's keep them like that. Move them out though a little bit. That's better. And then I have this thing in this game where like the spruces are different colored. I'm sure you've noticed in the other places. Oh, is that actually? Yeah, that thing is still flying. Let's turn off the grass rendering just for a second. Grass away. And here, of course, I can't modify the terrain. That's what I would normally do here, but since this is actually not sitting on terrain, I need to fit these guys here instead. And the grass back on. That doesn't look good. So let's rotate the whole thing a little bit. Of course, I could place all of these individually as well, but this tends to work pretty nicely. All right. Just bring that up there and leave it visible. So just take some of these and go like, okay, branch number 4, that could be a red one. Actually, let's make one of the larger ones. Branch number 2 could be a red one. Spruce red. And number 3 could be a yellow one. Why not? There we go. So we have a little bit of color variation there as well. And there is like a narrative reason for why the trees would look like that, which I'm not gonna spoil right now. Right, something like that, and then if we really want to, we can even put in some larger rocks here that are like not part of the rocks that are not part of the actual terrain, right? Or, well, I mean, this is not terrain, but like if you consider it like... Consider this piece of the map to be the terrain in this particular area. And this rock here, for example, is part of this entire thing. That's kind of just how I designed it in Blender, and then it kind of got left in there, even though it technically might make sense to not have them included there. Yeah, I think it definitely looks like, you know, the area continues over there, even though you can't really get to it. Kind of looks like, yeah, the road continues down the mountain, essentially, which is just the illusion I'm trying to give here, right? It's an illusion. Yeah, I think that's gonna work. As soon as we fix this, fix that background thing there. Maybe we could look at that next. That's kind of bugging me a little bit. I kind of vaguely remember having fixed this previously, but evidently not. Or then it has somehow been broken again. So how should we fix this? Should we fix it by like making the background slightly more yellowish? Or should we fix it by making this foreground slightly more, I don't know, white grayish? They need to be closer together. Is like the thing. Anyway, this would be background terrain, level depot specific background terrain, and that would be what? Oh, that's just a quick mesh, is it? Block out sand distant object. Right, that's a quick mesh. I didn't remember that. Let's open it in Blender and see what it looks like. Yep. Edit in Blender. We're essentially just exporting the entire level here as the surrounding objects. It's a little, a little weird, maybe. But that's the reason it takes a little while to actually open it. There we go. And also a little while for Blender to open the thing. But here we have the so-called, oh, it's super slow, the so-called surroundings, which is like right in the middle of the thing. This is the entire level now, which of course is a little weird. Here you can very here you can very clearly see the difference between the terrain and the mesh. Oh yeah. So this is so large that the view distance is sort of like not enough. Let's see. Oh, here we go, actually. View. 5,000 meters. Let's make that 6,000 meters. $7,000 meters. With 7,000 meters, we can see basically the entire thing. And you see that we have some of these areas have a little bit of detail. Not a whole lot. Can you actually see that bump? Where is that bump? Right, it's right here. There's the bump. In the distance, okay. So that's one, and then we have another one over here. Yeah, there's another one. Just a slightly more sort of maybe like dramatical or something. Yep. Okay. What's that? That's probably the moon. Yeah, it's clearly the moon. All right. So what we could do here is we could just give this guy a bespoke material, because now it's just using the block out sand distant object. So I think we're going to do that. Let's explore to that guy. So this is a block out distant object. Base material, right? Yeah. So it has two render passes, opaque and distant object. And the distant object pass is sort of like here, just so that you can actually render objects that have like these ridiculously large sizes without the back what do you call it, the frustum culling, like the back, the far Z of the frustum kind of not being enough. Right, so here you can see like this. Let's take the fog away again. You can see the actual level kind of just disappearing at this distance, but this large air plane is just completely visible still at an even greater distance. And so distant objects have this like super far away back plane. Same thing with the moon actually. And the moon is actually just like a plane. You can see it's just a two-dimensional thing. And you can see it from the level, even though it's like, I don't know, about 5,000, 6,000 units away. So that's why we have the opaque render pass here, and then we have the distant render pass, and then we have the opaque render pass as well, which is probably because it makes sense to render it if you fly with the camera so that you're close to it, to have the sort of depth working correctly with it. I think we need to render it to the opaque pass as well, or something like that, something strange like that. But anyway, pretty basic shader. There's no GI, no global illumination, so no light maps or light probes. It receives shadows apparently, but it doesn't cast any shadows because we don't have a shadow map pass. We would want to go in here and go to shadow map and set this to either default or create like a specific node graph for it. We don't have it here, so it doesn't cast any shadows. That's fine. And we can just take this guy and go back to our depot folder, materials. And what was it called actually in the game? Plane far. Yeah, plane far is good. Alright, that's actually not the one we want. Let's see. Yeah, so this is called blockout sand distant object. But that's actually a material variant, which is called blockout sand distant object. And that variant is based on the blockout distant object base material. So we're gonna do, oh, that's slide data. No, it's not. Okay, just jumped there for some reason. Okay, never mind. Map depot materials, let's call this plane far. Yeah, the thing that kind of tripped me up was like, how can it be 1 kilobyte? Now you can see here that this is 26 kilobytes. And now it contains the whole graph and everything. So if we go have a look here at this, it contains like a whole bunch more than before, all of this stuff. Okay, good. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna basically copy the colors that we had for the previous one. So blockout sand distant object. Basically like this yellow here. So there's a diffuse, ambient, and specular. There's no specularity to this really. And let's copy it into this new plane file material. Start with that. That's 96, 96, 96. 96, 96, 96. Okay. And what's the specular one? 02, 02, 02, and that's what we already had. Okay, good. So, export this guy. There we go. And again, now that we have this material, we can just change that color to make it match up with this material here in the foreground, right? So let's see. Click that plane far. And now if we want to make it something completely outrageous, like that, just to make sure that we actually can see the difference here. Yeah, now it's like this sickly green. Oh, and it has a texture. Yeah, we should probably get rid of the texture, right? What was the texture that the original one used? Let's see, block out sand distant object. Right, it's using something called the milky white texture, so let's use that instead. There we go. Rightio. So now with this, I did get a little bit of an inkling of second thoughts here. I mean, it's really good that we now have a bespoke material for this, because we might want to have to make some changes to it. But what I was thinking was that, like, did I make this far plane, this sort of like gray and bright, just because I wanted it to match the skybox here, like the fog in the distance, essentially? Is that the reason I made it this color? Might be. So if that is the case, then we're gonna have to adjust this foreground one instead, right? But let's see. So if I go here and I go to one of these like problematic places, like here, for example, you can clearly see this switch between the two. Let's make some small changes to this and see what happens. Yeah, got closer already. Yeah, I think we need to bring up the saturation a little bit, right? We can also just go here and look at it like this, very, very sort of closely. Very close to the thing. Yeah, that's already much closer. I think like that's pretty damn close. I think the lighting is pretty good. It's just like the hue is a little bit different, right? It's actually a little too dark now. Let's bring up the light, maybe just one step. Yeah, no more. Very small changes here to this thing. Yeah, that's a bit too much. Okay. Yep, that's starting to be pretty good. So how are we there in the horizon now? Does that look good? I think that looks pretty alright. I think it's just so very foggy here that like you can't really see like a whole lot at that distance. Yeah, I think this might have to do. What I was thinking was that maybe we could go into this guy. Let's see. This is the depot level specific background terrain. That probably lives in the depot level specific blueprint background terrain. Map depot background terrain is right there. And actually make it so that this corner here isn't that sharp, because there's really no reason for it to be. Let's go to map depot, background terrain, work, blend, and just cut this guy so that we don't have like a sharp corner there, right? Actually, none of these need to be sharp. Here you can see how it actually looks. I think this guy uses this uses a normal map. As a matter of fact, the high density, high definition version of it is much more detailed. This is actually sculpted, and then this is the retopologized version. So that's fine, but let's take this thing. Kind of looks like a crab from above, I should note. And what if we take that and just like bring it in like so, right? That gives it a more rounded appearance when we're looking at it from about over here, where like we're now standing like in this hole in the middle where the level will go. And then you know, this makes it so that you don't have this very sort of sharp kind of well, angle there. That makes sense. Mint25 Pop asked, do you obsess about everything game dev wise? I heard that's what good games do. Well, games don't obsess about anything. Game devs might. But yeah, no, you can't really obsess about everything. If you do that, then you never get anything finished, right? You kind of need to pick your battles. But it is, of course, like it's different games, different game devs have different priorities, right? So not everyone can obsess over everything, and in certain games it's more important to obsess over certain things. I wouldn't say I obsess over necessarily that many things, but I'm sure some people would think that is the case. Alright, something like that maybe. Yeah, you shouldn't really have to do anything here. Can't really see that at all. Here's maybe something we can do a little bit about. It's kind of like rounding off the corners here, right? I mean, some people might say that this is obsessing over things, what we're doing right now. You know, spending our time on these insignificant details, the background terrain. Maybe this would be obsessing about stuff for some people. I kind of don't really consider that obsessing. It's just like, I see a visual glitch, let's try to fix it. Right? Right, so if the player stands here, there's this corner. It's not super visible right now from the level. But if we go here, and we export that again, now it looks like that. And so now we have the issue that we have some holes there, right? Some holes there, we have a hole here, and another one over there. That should be easy to fix because this is a quick mesh. Quick mesh server is still running. Just edit it in Blender. Again, we have to wait for it to open it up. But that also means that we should get at least I think we should get the nearer plane in there. Yes, we get the nearer plane to get this nice sort of, what do you want to call this, edge here. We need to fill that up. So how do we fill it up? Well, let's see. If we take that and just move it there. Where's the next? Oh, this is a really big one. Okay, so we need to cut this up like so. Something like that. A little bit more, and then we just put a triangle there. Now that's fixed. that should be easy. We already have geometry there to help us out. And same thing here. No, actually not. We need to cut this thing out. White. I think that should do it. So we have a few more polygons there to work with. And yeah, the back of this doesn't need to be filled. As you can see, it's just completely empty in many ways. Well, if we wanted to, we could of course do this, just to make sure that we don't have any sort of glitchy slices of nothing shining through the fog there. Because if you have a... Oh no, look at that. That's not good. We can't have that. Can't have that. If you have a foggy area, like fog in the distance, the way fog typically works, that's not necessarily how it always works, but the way fog typically works is that, like, if you then have an area that doesn't have any geometry, then it just like it shines through the fog like a freaking lighthouse. And you can very easily see that, oh, there's something funky there. Maybe something like that. Maybe let's try that. So now if we look at this, we have this annoying hole. And like that, you can see that, okay, we don't have any geometry here. And this is what it looks like. It is especially bad if you don't have a skybox, because the sky sphere is what it's called here. If you take that out, you can see that it's just absolutely visible. The thing with the sky sphere is that we always have a little bit of geometry there, and the fog is actually affecting the sky sphere as well. So it's less visible, but it's still visible, right? Cool, let's do a quick smart UV project on this guy and then finish editing. There we go, and now it's fixed. That should be better. Let's save this and play a little bit. And again, I'm going to play with the mother, because the mother has the camera that like allows us to see into places that arguably the Scout doesn't allow us to do. It's a little annoying that the objects always spawn with an identity rotation. That always means that I have to do the same thing. I have to turn this vehicle because it always spawns facing the cliff. Could maybe write a little bit of math and have it so that it spawns according to the camera or something. That might be kind of nice. Anyway, now that's much less visible. It's still a little visible, but it's kind of difficult to say what it is, so might be fine. We'll see if it's fine or not. But yeah, like you asked about the obsessing over things. Like obsession has a little bit of a negative connotation to it. A lot of the time when people talk about someone obsessing over something, they kind of, what they mean is that they like put way too much emphasis on something. They spend way too long doing something, and so on. And for some projects, doing something, you know, for 10 hours might be considered obsession, while for other projects doing something for doing the same thing for 20 hours might be like way too little. So there's always the question of like what is actually enough and what is too much and what is, you know, the sweet spot in between. Yeah, I think this works. We can get maybe, because we can't actually drive with this guy to through the tunnel there. It doesn't fit. But we can get a gripper truck, switch to it and drive through there. So I'm just basically looking at this background here to kind of see, okay, do I see any of these glitches anymore? Do I see any of these areas where I immediately need to go in and fix something regarding the background? But I think it's probably pretty good. At least for the time being. I want to say sort of the intent of letting the main menu look like dull and boring just because your gameplay is top tier. What? Are you saying that you should let your main menu look dull and boring? Or are you saying that my main menu looks dull and boring? Which, you know, you're fully allowed to feel that way. But I don't exactly understand. I don't think you should make any part of your game necessarily look dull and boring. Should not. Ah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. that makes more sense. For a moment I was thinking like, do you mean like you want it to be sort of juxtaposed against the awesome gameplay? Look at how boring our main menu is because gameplay is awesome. Something. That said, there are some games with some pretty boring main menus that are then otherwise super awesome games. There are some also games with super awesome main menus. But yeah, it's maybe not the most important part of the game, the main menu. Yeah, I think this is probably good enough for now. This is probably good enough for now. Hey, boom, boom. Hey, Arcane, welcome back. Welcome, welcome. How are you today? Okay, then, should we maybe get started on this little filler piece here, this cliff thing? If we're not talking about, if we're sort of discounting the hand painting that I'm gonna do on all of these cliff pieces at some point, and which, as I said earlier, I kind of need to do on a separate machine. Doing the texturing for this guy should be pretty quick, I think. So that might be something that we can do, and we can maybe even do that one, and then we have all of them, well, except the tunnel. Tunnel's still there. Tunnel needs to be fixed. That's one thing. Another thing that I need to look at kind of soon is this monorail. So the monorail is also quick mesh, and it is, if I remember correctly, it's using like geometry nodes in Blender, and it also exports almost all of the level, but not quite all of it. Yeah, this is a geometry node system where you have like a spline like this, and then you have a small piece of the monorail, how you want it to look, and then you kind of, the geometry node makes it so that you can edit this guy. If I can remember how that actually, is it that one? I think it's that one actually. This guy, yeah. So you can just drag this like burp, and then the monorail follows it, and then it kind of breaks if you do crazy enough maneuvers, because my geometry node skills are a little bad, but you can then go in and fix that, typically by increasing like the count. There we go. It's almost fixed. Not quite. Well, anyway, I'm gonna have to go in and fix this thing up. And I mean specifically like this part, because this thing is like supposed to be kind of broken down. But this now looks like this is made out of like rubber or something like that. That's not how like a concrete monorail like this would actually break. Right? And also the end piece here is completely missing. Here as well. Rip. So yeah, that's something to look at. And then this part needs to be fixed. I'm just sort of like listing things I know I need to do here now. Just kind of musing a little bit about the whole thing. If you're wondering why I'm listing these things, here's a weird pit sort of deal. Maybe we can lift it up, fill it in. Something like that. The player should never get to see this area, but I do wonder if we still need to do something about it, because it just looks so weird and strange. We should probably at least like use a carver, and let's do 20.1 40, and carve this away. 40 is a bit much. Let's do 30 instead. Actually, maybe 40 was quite good after all. I'm gonna slice this away a little bit here because it doesn't look good like that. Whoop. And the reason I'm using a carver like that is that it's easier to get these kind of like even even angles at these places over a large distance. If you do it with a carver, you can also obviously melt this terrain like this by hand, but it can quite often be easy to start with a carver and then just go in and fiddle with it yourself afterwards. Okay, that looks a little nicer maybe. And sort of overall, I'm gonna need to put quite a bit of work into this level over the coming days and maybe weeks even, because I need this level to be in a beautiful shape. More than anything, it needs to be beautiful and kind of like representative of what I want the game to look like for the upcoming Steam page. And so that's kind of why I'm doing this now, why I'm spending time in this level more than I have, you know, recently, because I need this thing to be looking nice. Yeah, there's quite a lot of work here in this basalt quarry also. All of these objects are just using blockout materials, even these like pillars themselves. I think this is also quick mesh. Yes, it is. Let's cancel that edit that in Blender. Right, so it's like all of this stuff. See that they're like way too long. Don't need to be that long at all. Yep. Yeah, so that needs to be fixed as well. Turned into some more sensible mesh and then UV unwrapped. But one thing at a time. Alrighty then. So, let's start working on this guy. Or shall we say, let's finish working on this guy, because this shouldn't be like a whole lot we actually need to do. I had some small things that kind of bugged me with this. Let's see. Get rid of the surroundings for a bit. You can see that like with these cliffs, I've sort of gone for a sort of, what should we call it, like intersected geometry based approach. So there's just like a whole bunch of intersecting geometry in these things these days, because it's pretty fast and intuitive to make these cliffs like this. Just have a bunch of boxes that you put together. So I'm actually looking for those two. Do we need those two pieces of those two faces there? I don't think we do. We can take them away. So before we do any sort of UV unwrapping, I'm gonna take this. Well, first of all, we're gonna simplify it like this. Take away all the stuff we don't need. Technically, I guess we wouldn't really even need this backside or this backside here. No one should be able to see this, but I'm gonna leave those because like their plans might change, and then suddenly you might have to be able to get, you know, here. But at the same time, I'm not really gonna put any effort into this because I'm pretty sure no one's gonna be able to go and see them. So that's kind of the idea. I think other than that, we are pretty close to being done with this guy. We can do a maybe a smart UV project, and then do an edit and update and keep editing, and we can see that small change we made looks all right. Well, there's actually like a hole there. You can see the terrain shining through. No, that doesn't really matter. Okay, is there something else to be done? This is kind of a strange sort of like a box, this entire cliff piece here, but that should make it somewhat easy to actually unwrap when we get that far, right? Yeah, I think we're done with this. I'm just gonna consider this done now. So what I do at this point is, this is again a quick mesh using the Blender Sync system. I'm gonna save a copy, and the copy I'm gonna put on the desktop. Hello, loading. There we go. Blender Sync target.blend is the name that it gives it if you're using the Blender Sync system for all of this stuff. And we can just shut that down. Save the level, and we can actually leave this level as it is right now. Instead we go to means data, work folder root, depot level, cliffs, and work. And here I'm actually going to make a change now. This is called cliff 1. Originally, I guess I intended for all of the cliffs to have their own file, but they ended up in the same file anyway, so I'm just gonna rename it to Depot Cliffs instead of Cliff 1. And here we have all of them. So all of these guys are in here as separate cliffs. Let's take append, and we do desktop, and we append from that file that we just saved, Blender Sync target object, Blender Sync target. There we go. And here we can see that the pivot is kind of a little weird now maybe. It's kind of sitting up there in the middle of that box. Maybe it should be more centered. So first of all, let's give this guy a more sensible name, Cliff 20. So this would be Cliff 21. And I'm just going to move everything upwards about 25. So now it's like in the middle of the thing. And we need to do the same thing here then, if we want to keep this compatible with the new mesh, right? Oh, I shut down the Blender. That was my Blender Sync target. Just need to quickly open a new one, edit in Blender. If you're confused about this Blender Sync business, I can explain it. But if not, then I'm just gonna keep going. I do have a couple of pretty good videos about that, right? That explain how that system works and what you can do with it. Long story short, it's a system that allows me to just like move things back and forth between Blender and the level editor very quickly without having to like manually save a single file anywhere. It's how essentially all of these glyphs are modeled as Blender Sync objects. Right. Okay, so now we have this pivot for this object is now here in the center of it. Moved 25 world units down as well. So when we get this new nicely textured and everything mesh from Blender, we just put it in the same position as this quick mesh, and then what I do is I move the quick meshes down. That's why we have almost like a copy of the level here underneath, which is fully loaded now when the game runs. They will of course be taken away then before the level is completed. But until I know I'm not going to need to make any changes. I'm not going to need that quick mesh geometry for anything. I keep them there so that I can very quickly access them. It's a pretty handy way to do it. Rightio. Anyway, here's the new one, the Cliff 21. And the first thing to do now then is to actually unwrap this guy. So that's a whole thing that needs to happen. I think unwrapping is not really something that anyone really likes to do. But luckily I have some pretty neat extensions or add-ons for Blender for doing it. So if we do unwrap angle based, and then we can go to Zen UV and add a checker texture at 24 is fine. And then view the stretching, it's stretched as all hell, as is to be expected. So let's start looking at this and seeing what we can do here about the stretching. Like I said, these boxy parts are kind of... Oh, here we have actually quite a bit of geometry we don't need for anything. Of course, the main reason for not having this in this particular case is that, like, you don't want to waste UV space. That's also completely unnecessary. Let's get rid of that. Something like that, maybe. Yep. All right. Alright, there's a very small amount of stretching here, which I think we will live with. That's fine. So the green is stretching. The color might confuse some people, because green typically means good. In this case, green means bad. Blue is the one we want, right? And stretching, of course, comes from the fact that you have these things that you want to sort of fold almost like a paper rendition of these things, and if it can't really like unfold, then you get stretching. Oh, we don't need that anymore. Bye bye. And that's why I need to add these seams, almost as if you're making one of these paper models, sort of like in reverse. kind of like taking the 3D model and figuring out how would it have been folded onto a paper or from a paper. Most people really hate this thing, doing UV unwrapping. I have to say that it's a little bit zen sometimes. It's not always very fun to do, but it's a little bit zen every now and then. To just put on like a podcast or something and then just do this. Sometimes it's just super annoying and you would just want it to be over. Oh, rip. Right. And of course, this add-on is called Zen UV. That's not really what I was thinking about. Feels like a pro Blender course. Don't make no mistake. I'm just someone who kind of sort of knows how Blender works. So I'm happy to hear that it feels well informed, but it's not necessarily exactly that. And you can also like visually see, you know, we've unwrapped this part here, right? This top part. We haven't unwrapped this, so you can see that this letter G here is like super wonky and weird, and like this grid here is like wonky as all hell. While up here it is mostly kind of nice and straight. Again, if we turn on the stretching overlay, you can see that, yep. Yeah, the main piece is starting to look pretty good now. I think we're gonna continue with this. I'm gonna work our way around the thing. Yeah, because like, you know, if you don't know me and my history and my background, I'm actually a programmer. So I'm completely self-taught when it comes to everything, you know, art related, and Blender is definitely one of those things that like I've kind of just like tried to do my best. That doesn't always mean that I know what I'm doing, but I think I know enough to be able to tell you some of these things. But if you that's not what I wanted to do. If you later on sort of think about something that I've said and you go like, that wasn't really right, that wasn't really how you're supposed to do this or that in Blender, then that would be why. Just giving you a fair warning here. Self-taught dude doing blendering. I think with programming I'm much more well informed. Yeah, no crime boss passed. No crime boss passed, just a filthy programmer passed. Alright, so the top part is starting to look nice and blue. That's kind of neat. Here's something now that I think we might want to actually fix, because this thing is probably gonna be just like super nasty when it comes to actually baking textures. So here we have a couple of faces that are almost overlapping. I have a few of these places here. You can probably find, like here's one, for example. We have like a few of these faces this doesn't look terrible, but it also doesn't look super nice. But the thing is that like making this actually kind of work nicely with the baking can be a bit of a hassle. So what I'm thinking is we're gonna actually want to decide, do we want one or the other? And I don't think we necessarily need this part to be here at all. So let's take this away at like, let's see. If we cut that, then we move it over there. I'm gonna take this guy and that guy and completely remove them. Right, so now we have a bit of a hole there. We need to fill that in somehow. And there as well. And that shouldn't be an issue. Let's see what we have to work with here. Let's drag that forward a little bit to close that hole. And maybe we need to actually add a point here. Like so. Something like that. And now what does that actually look like? If we hide that. It looks like that. That's completely fine. Yep. That's completely fine. You can also see that we have quite a bit of unnecessary geometry here inside of this again. A little bit of unnecessary geometry is not bad, but again we're wasting UV space for all of these things unnecessarily. And the UV unwrapping here is going to be, you know, the big part. Actually creating that material is super fast with my kind of scripts that I've created for the location. So since we are almost done with the UV unwrapping, now we're actually almost done with this entire cliff then, all of a sudden. Okay. So let's take this problematic piece and remove everything else and just unwrap this quickly. These are boxy enough that it should actually be very quick. Like so. Look at that, we don't have any stretching in that area anymore, we just have this guy here. So let's do the same for this. Yep, it just goes in an L. An L here. Angle based. No stretching. Nice. Oh, there's some more stretching. What's going on? Oh, we have a bottom face. We don't need a bottom face. It's completely unnecessary, and now there's no stretching at all. A little more and we're almost done. The entire cliff. That's one. Let's see. That fixes that. Then we have this guy. That needs to come all the way from there. And then we have this last one, which I think I'm gonna cut like that. And would you look at that? No stretching. Well, there's a little bit of stretching here on this thing. This is now the most stretched object in the entire, or face, the entire mesh, or island I should say, maybe. Island is the correct term. And now it's fixed as well. But there's that's a slightly wonky face actually. So let's make planar. And that should be probably good. Okay. So now we have this laid out onto nice islands here. If we go to UV editor, we can see those islands. Still we need to pack them. And I have my other favorite UV unwrapping extension add-on thing here, UV Packmaster 3. Just click this and it tries to find the optimal layout. You can see we actually get some pretty good results. 0.7 over 0.7 is what I typically aim for. I want to have quite a lot of margin, so I don't typically get a lot higher than 0.7, but we're already at 0.73, so that's pretty nice. That's pretty neat. 739. So let it run for a little while. Ooh, 743. Nice. Get some pretty good usage out of this now. Oh, and I realize now that it's kind of like overlapping with the chat there. I haven't really had that chat overlay for very long, so I kind of forget that I have it. Might be a little difficult to read what it says, but it doesn't matter. Okay, I think we're pretty much done. So let's cancel that, and this is now the packing that it kind of suggests to us. And I can just go, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's a little strange. Let's maybe bring that in a little bit. That'll be fine. Yeah, so it's that one there. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. Now then, now would be the time to actually create the textures for this. And textures I typically create using a script. I've done it already here in this file, so I have the script already set up here. Cliff 20. This was 21, so let's just switch it to 21, and we're gonna run this script. And it takes actually a little while for it to run because my Python skills are kind of bad actually. Not a very good Python programmer. But anyway, what we are doing here is creating 4K textures. That's actually perhaps a little overkill, and that's one reason why baking is a little slow. Could have just been 2K. Well, anyway, I'm creating 4 textures. So we're creating a diffuse texture, an edge highlight texture, a color placement, and a painted details. Diffuse is basically like the output. That's what we want to feed into the engine. Edge highlights is a texture that we use to create these kinds of edge highlights. You can see that there's like all the edges have this slight kind of like brighter paint almost applied to it here. And the same goes for most objects in the game. Like the same can be said for the vehicles as well. for example. Not quite everything, because some things are kind of tricky to apply it to, but most things. And that's what that is. Color placement is like, it's like a mask texture. Which material do you want to apply it into which to which areas? So this guy here, for example, which is this huge cliff piece that covers almost the entire side of the cliff here, has like rock over here, but it has like a little bit of painted sort of dry grass over here, and that where those things go is determined by color placement. And then painted details is just like the name suggests, it's just you can paint onto that thing afterwards. And that's how like I've painted some like crap and dirt onto these things here later on. So we're not really gonna be looking at that in this. We might look a little bit at the color placement. Like it might make sense to put a little bit of this yellow here on under this tree, for example. That's something that I can just paint there with the mouse. Super easy. Okay, so this ran and it created 4 new textures for us, and we, well, first of all we do the edge highlights. So if we go back here, and we can see this weird looking material, we need to go into rendered mode. And now we can see the edge highlights being calculated for us on the fly here. And you can sort of see, okay, are they the correct size? Does everything look good? I think it looks pretty good. So we come in here and go diffuse and edge highlights. That's the texture we want to paint that into. And for the edge highlights, we actually want to paint an emission map, essentially. And we bake this. And we'll see how long this actually takes. It took kind of annoyingly long previously today when I baked this road ramp thing here. You can see the machine is very slow now because it's baked like that cliff pieces textures. It's almost as if Blender 4.5 doesn't really want to use my GPU for baking. I don't exactly know what's going on there. But let's let it work for a little bit. Yeah, it's doing stuff. While it is working, I'm gonna go get a little bit more water. Right, it actually might be that it's slow because, well, in this particular case, it might be that it's slow because we are encoding video using GPU, you know, rendering and whatnot. And we are also baking using the GPU, so that might be one thing, right? That, however, should not have been like the issue previously today when I did this. But if the video like loses fidelity during this, you know that is the problem, because like the GPU can't quite keep up. Alright, well it's still chugging along here, but not really making any decent progress, unfortunately. That's not great. You can see it's sitting at 0%, but in my experience, once it gets going, it's almost done. So it goes like 1%, and then it's like 40, and then it's 89, and then it's done, or something like that. So let's give it a bit more time. Did the storm pass by? It kind of looks like it, yeah. Kind of looks like it did. Yeah, we had a thunderstorm in the morning. It was like raining quite heavily, and there was lightning and everything. And I kind of thought that would have been it, but then of course, right when I started streaming, there was another one. Well, it looks like it's gone now as well. Well, let's see how OBS reacts to that. I'm gonna turn it on just in a second. See, does that actually affect how the GPU is being used here? Not sure, but maybe. Yeah, I don't know what is going on here with Blender 4.5 now. See if we can find some information about this on the internets. Blender 4.5 baking slow. Yeah, some of these are really old. So it kind of doesn't look like it's has anything to do with 4.5. But this is just like mind-numbingly slow. And I'm using GPU compute. Now granted, the GPU in this machine is not very good. It's a 2060. But it's been baking like a champ in previous versions. So that's not nice. I have it set to Vulkan, but I did have it set to OpenGL earlier. So that's also annoying. Yeah, I don't know what is going on. It's just mind-numbingly slow. See if we cancel it. Sometimes when you cancel things like this, you can see that, oh, it actually had baked like 90% of the thing. You can see it here in Blender. Yeah, well, it had done some of it, but actually very little. Let's save this and save all images just to be on the safe side. That's actually how it's supposed to look. That shouldn't really matter. Alright, let's try that one more time. Yeah, I also think my Blender is acting weird. what actually happens if we download a portable. Nope, I don't want that. Download a portable 4.4. Let's see. 4.4, 4.4.3. Yeah, that looks alright. Let's try that. Yeah, because this is like nothing's happening. It's not great. So shut this down and let's see. Okay, we have the 4.3 incoming here. Here it is. Extract it to there. It's ironic because of course the 4.5 is supposed to be the LTS. It's supposed to be especially good. And then it like just doesn't work. What's up with that? Save this thing. I'm gonna shut that down. Yeah, sure. We can save it. Probably just crap, but so 4.4 with a little bit of luck, I still have my plugins working here. Let's see. It takes like significantly longer to start, though. That's something that they mentioned that they worked on with 4.5, and it actually does seem to be the case that it's nicer. Right, so let's go to map depot cliffs work depot cliffs. All right, so here we have the thing. So this is now 4.4.3. UV Backmaster engine. Oh. Yeah, might be that we just have to bake with this, if nothing else. Let's see if we can bake with this thing. Because I think some of these add-ons are now kind of like not compatible with this, unfortunately. But let's see. Let's see if baking works. So, Bakeroo. Or is it just as slow? If it is just as slow, I don't really know what to think about this, because like it has worked quite nicely. So if this doesn't work, one other thing that I'm gonna try is to bake with 2K textures. There is a possibility that the reason why it is so ridiculously slow now is that we're hitting some sort of glass ceiling with like how much VRAM I have or something like that. So that, like, you know, if baking a 2K texture takes, let's say, 10 seconds, it might be that we're hitting a slow path, so that baking, instead of 10 seconds, baking a 4K texture takes 10 hours. You know, some like completely ridiculous jump in time. Yeah, nothing seems to be happening here either, so probably like blowing my VRAM or something. So let's cancel this, and we're gonna go back and do, yeah, bye-bye. Not save anything. I'm gonna go back here, and I probably need to how do I do this now? I'm gonna get rid of these textures completely. So that one, bye-bye. There should be 3 more with 21, and bye-bye. And that one. Like so. And then if we do revert, now we should have no. Oh, it's actually, okay, right, it's, let's see, revert, click revert. Now it should be, now they should be gone. Yeah, so now we have no textures with 21 in them anymore, and then we also need to go in here and actually delete the 4 files. like so. So now if we recreate those guys, text editor, not create 4K textures, but just 2K textures. And hopefully this should be much easier to work with, but we'll see. So now if we go to 21 diffuse, for example, have a look here. Yeah, now it's 2K texture instead of a 4K one. I don't really need 4K textures for this. I kind of downscale these to something else. But I typically start with pretty high resolutions and then just downsample them instead of like actually working with low resolutions. I got on the phone call. One second. Alright, sorry about that. Rightio, so now we have the same situation, smaller textures. Let's see if this actually works better now. So edge highlights, emit is the bake type, and let's go. Do we get any? Get it any easier with 2K textures? I'm hoping we will. So of course this will in the end be exported as a single texture, which is the diffuse. Yeah, now you can see now we already have 1%, but it should jump to something significantly higher soon. Yeah, we'll export it as a single texture, and that one gets fed to the game engine. But what I typically do, especially for like a cliff that's as small as this, is that I actually, when it gets converted into like BC7, you know, block compressed formats or something like that, I just downscale it at that point. All right. So. Rightio. So here is the material for the new cliff. Material cliff 21. Here we have the diffuse on the left. This is sort of like the output. Then we have the 3 inputs: color placement, painted details, and edge highlights. And then this is what the material looks like internally. It's not super important right now because we're not going to be really using a whole lot of those features for this particular one. Let's just make sure that we can actually see it correctly, which we can, right? So there's not a whole lot of detail because, like, as we discussed already previously, we haven't painted anything on it. You can see that there's a little bit of like some kind of like grunge going on here. I wonder why my cursor looks like that all of a sudden. There we go, that's better. But you can see these edge highlights quite clearly here, right? So if we disable that, we can toggle the edge highlights on and off, and you can sort of see the effect that they have on it. So this is kind of like the thing that we will now bake into the diffuse texture, and then just use that for the mesh, you know, until I actually start painting on it. But there are a few things that we need to do first. First of all, we need to export this guy as an FBX. I think we can do that probably right now. We can just set that to basis mesh, and then bump the number to depot cliff 21. And the next thing that we'll want to do then is bake the diffuse. Hopefully this shouldn't now take very long. So we need the diffuse selected here. We need to make sure that all the images are saved, but they are, so that's fine. And then we bake this. And as it is baking, I'm gonna go here and tweak some things. So we have depot cliff 21 FBX, because we're gonna want to use this as the physics data as well. This is like low poly enough that I can just use this as the physics mesh. So just tick that box that we want to use physics data from the same mesh as the actual rendering is done. And of course you can make like a separate collision mesh if you want that. But for the time being, let's not do that. And again, let's hope that this now goes by somewhat quickly. There we go. So we save this guy, and then we also need to save a copy outside of this _work folder, because the engine is set to like not read the _work folder things, so it doesn't try to create any textures out of those. We only want the diffuse one outside of it, so let's save it here. Yep, that looks good. And then if we refresh this, – 21. Why don't I get that? Oh, where is the thing? Huh? Where did I actually save that now? Save copy. Yeah, that's where we want it. Outside of the work folder. Okay. Okay. There we go. Here's our diffuse. Now we should see this thing. Right, so we have the FBX, which is the mesh, and we have the actual texture. And here is where we can actually then downscale it. And I think I'm going to put this to a 1K texture, because this is a small enough cliff. We still keep the work textures as 2K, or originally they would have been 4K. 2K is quite good enough. But this means that we can then sort of like dynamically scale them up and down by just adjusting these target width, target height values. So that if the game looks good enough with a 1K texture, you save a little bit of memory there. Stuff like that. That's nice. But then you can go back up if you need to by bumping that work texture resolution. So the last thing that we need to do is basically make a copy of this material and replace it with that new texture. And with that all out of the way, we can do depot level specific. And here we have all of these cliffs. We can also get a preview for them here. So here's the previous cliff that I did. Apparently number 20 looks like this. You can also see that, okay, yeah, it uses the physics representation is the same as the visuals for this as well. Cliff off-road map or off-road ramp is this one that I did earlier today. It doesn't have any collisions at all because you're not supposed to actually get to it. I will take this one and duplicate it and name it 21. And now we should be able to just like replace these things. And look at that. We have our new cliff. And it also has the same collisions applied to it. And looks good. And now that we have this thing set, if you want to make any changes to either the mesh or the material or the texture, you can just do that and they will hot update in the game. So that's kind of neat once you have the game object type set there. I do, however, need to reload this to see that new game object type in the editor. So let's do that. And we should be able to see it here. We should even get a thumbnail momentarily. There we go. It looks a little funky because it has some single-sided faces there. So what I now do then quite often is that I move that down like we discussed previously. I think it's probably at either 50 or 100. I think this is probably 100. So if we move it twice down with movement, move snap set to 50, you can see that it kind of snaps into these other guys that are down here. So that's kind of neat. Let's take that, let's copy its transform and add a new of these new ones that we created, and then we add it back up. It should sit at the exact same, at the exact correct spot, shall we say. And this is now where we can look at this. First of all, we can see that it does have a texture now, right? There is that little bit of grunge going on there. But we can also now paint this in several different ways. We can do a little bit of painting here on some of these plateaus here. And then later I will also go in and paint a little bit of dirt and stuff with my painting tablet. Or painting drawing screen, I think is what it's called. I do realize though that this face is the most wonky face I've seen in a while, so let's fix that actually. That is just like wonk down. Maybe that's a little nicer. Now, of course, if we do this, the edge highlights don't necessarily match 100%. But I think that's still probably, close enough. It didn't change all that much. But like, in theory, I guess I should go in now and repaint these edge highlights. I think I'm gonna do it right now. That was almost the same as it was previously, but the face looks nicer. What do you like about Gamedev? A whole bunch of things, I guess. Haven't really thought about it ever, but the fact is that I haven't really done anything else ever. It's kind of just like, well, that's not true. I did do like productivity software for a bit before I got into game dev, but it's kind of like the thing I know how to do. So, you know, once you get to that level where it's like, okay, I've done this for like 15 years or so, you don't really think about it in terms of what do you like about it, to be honest. But I guess, I mean, lots of things. I mean, games are fun, right? And games are interesting from like tech perspective as well. And there's like art, and there's music, and there's narrative stuff, and there's everything. So that's one thing I like about them. That's that there's just so much that goes into making a game compared to many other media. Okay. We are coming up on 3 hours. And I think I'm gonna go take a little bit of a break. I'm gonna go make some food for my kids. And after that, I am going to continue streaming. So I think I will actually probably make a new stream. So if you are interested in continuing to watch this thing, I think that stream will be up in about an hour or so. So you're welcome to come back and continue to hang out in that one. But I don't think there's really any point in just like in having the stream sort of run in the background while I'm doing other stuff, because we don't have that many viewers currently. So yeah, I think this is actually going pretty well, except for the whole baking thing, which I kind of need to maybe investigate a little bit, like why that is happening. That needs to happen off the air, as it were. But other than that, I think this is going pretty well. We are probably going to be doing a little bit of painting on this guy, and then we might start tackling this cliff here. And then we'll have all of these like sort of big cliffs done. And then after that, I'll have a think about what I actually want to do after that, right? Do I want to go into the tunnel here and model that gate or whatever? Or do I want to do something here in the quarry? I was thinking I might want to like take one or two of the like meshes from the other game and bring them into this one, because it's kind of like the same project. It's just like an earlier incarnation of the same project, so I have no qualms about using meshes from that one. They just made like a few months apart, but some of them are or most of them, I guess, are still not in this project. So that's something that we might want to look at